Hi, it's me, David, and I would like to welcome you back to my channel. A few weeks ago, I decided to rewatch my Parkinson's diagnosis story and got to have a good look at myself from nearly 4.5 years ago. It was surprising to see how much I had changed. The biggest thing I thought about, and though which I am very happy I did, is that I left the emotional issues out of the video, because one thing I have really noticed lately, on lots of the support groups, is new members are asking the same question, just with different themes, such as, I just got diagnosed with Parkinson's, am I going to be okay? Or, I just got diagnosed with this terrible disease, I watched what it did to a grandparent, a parent, or another family member. What is it going to do to me? Because of the recurring theme that just jumps off the computer screen to me, I felt that it was time to discuss the emotional side of being diagnosed with Parkinson's disease, with the aim of providing a decent answer to the main question. I feel that enough time has lapsed from my initial diagnosis so I can talk about my feelings without getting stuck on a single emotion or being too biased. I think a lot of people watching this video might benefit from that because it is life-altering to be told that you have Parkinson's disease. A lot of people are being diagnosed younger and younger, like myself. I was just 44 years old, and I've been told by many that not everyone reveals their diagnosis right away. So that single question might be weighing on their minds more than anything else, especially if they haven't openly shared their diagnosis from fear of job loss or any other very personal and important reason. I've decided to use the 5 stages of grief as my guide to answer the question, because it most accurately reflects my journey. I've included a link in the description below to the 5 stages, which are denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. This is going to be a longer video than usual due to the difficulty of the content, so strap on your seatbelt, get your popcorn ready, or just watch the video a little bit at a time. Loss is all something we are aware of. It's something that we are introduced to early in life. We may lose a relative when we are young, a pet, or a family friend. I remember my first significant losses around the age of 5 when my first grandparents died. I have only a few memories of them, although I am in pictures taken with them that I don't remember happening. To me, getting Parkinson's disease is like dealing with an immediate loss, because certain parts of us begin to die. We begin to give up things, small things, that are immediately taken away from us without our permission, and they add up over time. When the losses reach a breaking point, we snap because we have lost control. This is where I believe that uneasiness begins to develop with the question of, am I going to be okay? Because I feel when we don't understand the loss or cannot control it, the drifting sensation drives us to this first stage, denial. When I received my diagnosis, our neurologist kept saying Parkinsonism. I was immediately happy about the diagnosis, happy that I finally knew what was wrong with me for so long. Oddly enough, my diagnosis came on a Sunday. So after seeing my neurologist, my wife and I spent the next few hours looking up the symptoms of Parkinson's on the internet and phoning family and friends. I woke up on Monday morning basically numb, and I went to work like nothing had happened. On Tuesday, I did not feel very good in the morning. I went into work for an hour and a half and then went straight home. I couldn't hold back the shock any longer. As soon as I got through the front door, I burst into tears and spent the next 4 hours sobbing my guts out. The boo-hoos were big one. This couldn't be happening to me was the one thought that went around repeatedly in my head. I've been working fine all these years, and I will continue to work fine. I have obligations. I have to keep working. So I found every resource possible to justify my continuing to work as per normal against immediately medical advice I received. As a man, I could not see it any other way. To help cope, I began to listen to the Battlestar Galactica soundtrack by Bear McCreary every day to help dull the pain. If you are familiar with the story of Battlestar Galactica, you will know that it is the story of significant loss, and wallowing in that story helped me to deal with my own loss. If you've seen some of my other videos, you will know that my family and I were already dealing with 2 chronic illnesses. To add a third, I just couldn't believe it. Also, my wife and I had already been making long-term plans and major life changes, and everything was suddenly put on hold. I had lost control. Shock, awe, and denial. Anger. I don't think that anyone likes to be a ball and chain. The person that holds others back, that they always have to wait up for. The killjoy person. Getting my own chronic illness definitely brought that vision to life, and honestly, this is a stage I still visit on a regular basis. You may think that I am fully through these steps based on my having a channel and trying to amass the resources to aid others to cope, but really, this stage is prevalent in my life. The most difficult thing for me about the anger is that it often evolves into pain and guilt. They rear their ugly heads when it is obvious to me that I am holding others back, getting in the way, or people having to cover for me or work harder because I can't keep up. This has caused a lot of problems for me because it makes me feel embarrassed and ashamed. I mean, others shouldn't have to work harder because I can't. I shouldn't be an invalid at such a young age. I should be able to do everything I used to do. Mind over matter, right? If I just envision myself doing it hard enough, it will happen. Or better yet, you can be whatever you want to be. Just do it. Not enough with the lies. Pain and guilt like this is morale breaking. It causes me to lash out when I shouldn't, and it makes it difficult to be around friends as often as I used to be. You would think that such anger, pain, and guilt wouldn't sprout from such a slow progressing disease. I mean, if we work hard at it, the symptoms can be slowed for years, possibly even reversed for periods of time if you are able. But when you know, I mean, when it's obvious you know for sure that you are becoming a burden on people that you shouldn't be, what can you do? Me, I sometimes have unjustified outbursts of anger over it, and often I can't even tell I am doing it. The consequences can be awful. A common saying is that when you are down, you hurt the ones you love the most. I agree because that is what I do. I make my journey more painful for myself than it should have been in the first place. Bargaining. The bargaining stage has not been a big one for me up to this point. I don't recall making deals with myself or God or other people. I do believe in God, or as others might put it themselves, a higher power, so I've always known and accepted the fact that my body would break down and die someday. But bargaining is not something that I have really done. Hey, if someone out there is watching this and would like to share their bargaining experience, please let me know in the comments below. It would be helpful for me to learn. I can see how the bargaining stage could be significant, because someone could go to their higher power and make some sort of agreement. Do this for me, and I will do whatever they agree to do. Or they might go over the last few years time and time again and get stuck on a single moment they regret and wish they had taken choice B or C instead of A. I have done that for other memories in my life, but not for this one. What I would like to talk about in this stage of the 5 stages of grief, when I contemplate the question of, I have just been diagnosed with Parkinson's disease, am I going to be okay? Is how do you phrase your response without breaking someone's spirit? How do you give them the truth and at the same time reassure them that they are going to be fine? I mean, I can't lie to people. There is no cure for Parkinson's. A person with Parkinson's isn't just going to wake up the next morning and leap out of bed with magical powers unless they experience a miracle. In fact, when you think about life in general, all of us will fade one day. Life seems to end for everyone the same. So why are we surprised when an illness like this pops up and interrupts our lives? Why is it so significant? I certainly don't have the answer for it, but I would like to bring it up in the context of the question this video asks, because my diagnosis of Parkinson's was earth-shattering. I was not immune to the impact of it. It was like life had tossed me under a bus. All I could think about, and sometimes still focus on more than I should, is how painful and obvious my decline will be. There is nothing I can do about it, I despair. Why fight it at all? Okay, depression. For me, the anger, the pain, the guilt, they all piled up. Kind of like the straw that broke the camel's back. The anger of being attacked by an illness I must fight back against every day. The anger of being the anchor in every relationship. It turned into depression, a thought that I could never find joy in life again, that the downward spiral would continue and I would be lost in a vortex. The depression is difficult to deal with because, as many of you know, that Parkinson's can produce depression-like symptoms on top of the pain and the guilt, and it can turn into a recipe for disaster. I don't want to turn this into a rant session, but I must interject something here that a dementia specialist told me. Parkinson's can produce depression-like symptoms. It does not mean that you are actually depressed. You are just experiencing the symptoms. Also, he said, the grief of a tragic diagnosis like this also can cause memory problems and cognitive impairments. I did not realize it at the time, but depression-like symptoms and real depression were occurring at the same time, causing me lots of issues. I began to have small memory glimpses, like forgetting what I was doing or where I was going, or forgetting how to do a simple task, like putting gas in the car. I could not see a future with Parkinson's disease. All I could see was despair. This is where the boo-hoos piled up on me again, and they were even bigger ones. When I reflect further on the 5 stages of guilt, I feel that the first 3 stages are us basically trying to find the answers for our problems internally, which does not turn out well. I feel that when we reach the depression stage, we realize that our ability to fix the problems ourselves has failed, and we finally look outside the box that we have so smartly created for ourselves, and maybe start listening to all of the external professional medical advice that in my case, I initially brushed away as inconvenient and wimpy. At this point in the discussion, I would like to get back to the main question of, I was just diagnosed with Parkinson's disease. Am I going to be okay? At the depression point, I had done everything else I could do to avoid facing the reality of this disease. I had lost control of my life, or better yet, my life had gone on without me. So was I going to be okay? The answer was obviously no. I had Parkinson's disease. Are you kidding me? What could be worse than that? Well, obviously a lot of things, but when I was stuck somewhere between denial and depression, I could not see anything worse. This is where I'm going to suggest that we need to ask a different question. It needs to be flipped around a little bit. We may not be in a clear mental state to do it just upon getting the bad news, but maybe somewhere along the way it might form in our minds. I will explain in the next stage. Acceptance. My first neurologist told me once that it takes at least 2 years to come to terms with a dramatic change in your life, such as being diagnosed with a chronic illness. I definitely agree with that because it took at least 2 years before I had my head above water again. I did not know what the future would bring, but when I finally reached this stage, I knew for the first time that things were going to get better. There are a lot of things that can be done and that you can do to help make the journey a lot easier and more comfortable. So those who ask the question of being okay must be aware that there are many ways to learn to cope. So at this stage of grief, I suggest that perhaps we are asking the wrong question. I'm suggesting that perhaps it needs to be altered to, I just got diagnosed with Parkinson's disease. How can I cope with it? On the surface, the two questions may appear to be the same, but in reality, they are very different. Coping suggests an acceptance of the situation with an active desire to deal with it. The original question suggests nothing of the sort. It's almost like it indicates that someone may be looking for a way out, or a way to avoid dealing with the issue at all. When we ask how we can cope with our diagnosis, we actually find hope, a reason to live again, and are actively involved in solutions. When we just ask if we are going to be okay, we're kind of still at the point of not taking an active part in our healing, our everyday management of our symptoms, or getting our lives back on track and contributing to society again. It's almost like we are a rock in the road that everyone drives into, rather than a stoplight that helps to regulate traffic. So for me, when I reached the acceptance stage, I could think again. I could look at life more clearly, and yes, the antidepressants help a lot. This was the point at which I was able to come to terms with my situation, understand my illness to a certain point, and to put to use the resources that were being offered to me. This was the point that I began to look into research papers, discuss my illness on support groups, and search for ways that I could help others deal with the shock of their own diagnosis. This was when I realized I wasn't the anchor or the ball and chain that weighed everyone down. That was only my perception of the situation I was allowing to happen. By focusing only on the negative situations in my life, I was creating the misery loves company scenario, something I need to learn to identify better and reverse. So to answer the main question one last time, I'm going to say yes, you will be okay, but only if you learn to cope with your illness. But stay tuned, I have something else to say in the conclusion. If you've made it this far, then I thank you for listening to my story. I hope you have been challenged by this discussion and have gained something from my personal take on the 5 stages of grief. It has been a personal journey for myself, and I hope I am able to respond better to others who are experiencing grief. Acceptance of a tragic situation or chronic illness, I believe, is not something that we can just snap our fingers and deal with in a few minutes' time. I also do not believe that grief over a situation is something that you can measure out per person and quantify. For example, you just can't walk up to someone and say, "Cheer up, you only have Parkinson's. It's not like you're dying or something," or have cancer or something else they dream up to try and make you feel better. My experiences with trauma, grief, and loss, and they have been many, have led me to firmly believe that the feeling of grief is constant per person and is therefore equal. Someone might lose an elderly family member they were very close to, but also who had suffered for many years from an illness and was finally released from it. And those around are grateful that that person is not in considerable pain anymore. The person who lost that family member feels the same amount of extreme grief and loss than does a young person who loses their spouse on their wedding night, heaven forbid, or does a child who loses that family pet they were close to for many years. I do not think it is right that we as outsiders to someone else's feelings try to put a measurement on them and rate them as we believe they should be rated. I bring this up because I've seen it happen, have had it happen to me, and have likely unfortunately done it to others in the past, and do not want to contribute to it ever happening again. I just feel that in the context of what we've been talking about, it is important to bring up. As people, we all feel things deeply, and I believe we need to acknowledge and respect the emotions of others around us. As a conclusion to this discussion, I invite you to leave a comment below. Do you agree with my answer to the question? How have you dealt with your own experience of grief or your diagnosis of Parkinson's disease? Let me know. I would be interested to find out. I hope to make other videos like this in the future. It has really become my passion to create videos that others with Parkinson's disease might find interesting or helpful. If you have any ideas that you would like to pass on, I would be happy to hear them. Hey, if I use your idea, I will definitely give you a shout out in the video. I hope we can take this journey together. Goodbye and have a good day.